one of our largest initiatives was to save on expenses. And our goal was to cut $1 million in OPEX, primarily on supply chain. And that was our biggest initiative. We got to around $820,000 supply chain. So we didn't quite hit the goal, but we did a lot of things that we thought were very helpful. And hopefully I'm going to share a lot of these tactics that we used to cut costs on Amazon, look at things more fundamentally from a principled stance on how to make things more efficient.
Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level.
Do you want to know what it takes to achieve $100 million in sales on Amazon? Well, today's guest knows exactly how to do it. Welcome to the Ecomm Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley. I scaled my own brand from 0 to 8 figures in sales, and now my mission is to take it to over 9 figures. On my journey to 9 figures, I bring you the unfiltered conversations with the smartest minds in e-commerce. Past guests include Ezra Firestone, Kevin King, and Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth. Today, I am super excited to welcome onto the show Jasim Eisa. He is the founder and CEO of Vodera, a global e-commerce partner helping brands win on Amazon and other online marketplaces. He built his company from selling used books at 15 into a 150-person operation, managing over 30,000 SKUs and driving over $100 million in revenue. Through Vodera's Marketplace Accelerator, he helps brands fix broken listings, eliminate unauthorized sellers, and scale profitably with full-service marketplace execution. He is on a mission to help great products achieve the dominance they deserve online. With that introduction, welcome to the show, Jasim.
Thank you very much, Josh. Honored to be here, and I'm great to finally speak to you.
Well, hey, you've built something incredible. It's very few people or even agencies that are doing over $100 million in sales on Amazon, and you're managing 30,000 SKUs. So that is no small feat. So I'm excited to dive into how in the world you're actually able to manage all of those SKUs on today's show.
Let's get into it.
Jasim, yeah. So let's dive in here. A couple things I think we want to dive into is number one, as you scale your business, we have heard that, there's a lot of margin compression. I'm curious to know if that's something that you have been seeing with the brands that you've been working with and what they're doing to combat the margin compression. And then the second thing that I really want to dive into is you talked about how you're using AI in some pretty incredible ways to expedite and increase the output from your team, and would love to dive into some of those specific use cases of how you're implementing AI with your team, especially when you have 150 people to manage. That's also easier said than done. So let's take it from the top. What are you hearing from the partners and the brands that you're working with right now on Amazon? Is it still working today as it once was in 2015, 2016?
Yeah, I mean, it's still working. It kind of breaking it into 2 parts. It's still working, but not as it once was, right? So there's obviously still huge potential, and we're responsible for these brands' P&L because we're actually acting as their exclusive distributor. So we're selling it through our account, and we have to make sure that we're netting as much as possible to be able to afford everything. And this is a fundamental change in today's general business landscape, and Amazon specifically, is that, all the Silicon Valley brands, whether it's Uber, DoorDash, Netflix, they kind of start cheap prices, getting customers, and profitable. And that's what clearly Amazon's shift is, and a grander scheme of things. Jeff Bezos left, Andy Jassy, he's maximizing profits. He even killed off a few cost centers that weren't worth it. Like, they just stopped prepping items. It just wasn't worth it for them profitably. They're doubling down on what's very profitable for them, and they're trying to squeeze as much margin as they can. Even if you look at Amazon's leadership team, I know a lot of people that were at the top of the three levels below that were let go, and they're bringing in more junior people. So they're just trying to maximize profit, and we're going to feel that as sellers on their marketplace, and it's not going back. It's only going forward. So we have to adjust from a principle level, and that's what we did actually in 2025. One of our largest initiatives was to save on expenses, and our goal was to cut $1 million in OPEX, primarily on supply chain. And that was our biggest initiative. We got to around $820,000 supply chain. So we didn't quite hit the goal, but we did a lot of things that we thought were very helpful. And hopefully I'm going to share a lot of these tactics that we used to cut costs on Amazon, look at things more fundamentally from a principled stance on how to make things more efficient.
I love that. Well, and Jasim, as we dive into this, I think it's important. You talked about this where Amazon initially was a little bit easier. The fees were not as high, right? And, there were fewer competitors. This is the evolution that all new brands, new companies go through, which is at the very beginning, you're maybe not as efficient as you would like to be. There is areas for improvement, but your most important thing at the very beginning of any business is top line revenue, sales, growth. Obviously, you want profits to be able to reinvest in that growth. However, most people need to focus on just growing top line sales more than focusing on, hey, I need to optimize every single carton or optimize my 3PL, strategies or costs and things like that. Although those are very important, they become more important as the business scales.
Matures.
And that's why we're seeing that like kind of shift with Amazon as it's in a very mature category itself. Now it's in a mature stage. And so at a mature stage, that's when it is appropriate for a business to come in and say, hey, what happens if we push out sellers disbursement another 7 days? How much more revenue does that give us? Because we can make interest, an extra 7 days of interest is X amount of money. Like that's the way that Amazon's looking at that. But at the beginning, they couldn't offer or they couldn't have those bad payment terms to sellers because then they wouldn't be able to attract the sellers. Well, now that there's really nowhere else to go, they're like, yeah, well, go run somewhere else. We'll fill you in with some overseas competitor at this point now. And so you're seeing all of Amazon, like they're increasing their fees. Low inventory fees are now introduced. There's more egregious AIS fees than we have ever seen before. And removing a product from Amazon is you're paying out the nose in order to do that now. And again, Amazon can do this now because they've proven that product market fit. They've gotten enough velocity. And so before we dive into all the strategies that you're going to share, I think it's just important to note, like if you're a budding 7-figure brand, right? Your best area of focus is probably not on optimizing your operational costs, right? Which is, your 3PL costs. Now, do you want to spend an arm and a leg on that? No, but like, having to nickel and dime somebody for that extra 5 cents isn't going to be as impactful as finding the next new hero SKU that's going to net you another $1 million, or finding the next new sales channel that's really going to like double your business, or social commerce, things like that. So that's where I would just encourage our listeners, if you've hit a mature stage in your business and you are profitable and you are growing, and as Jasim shares some of these strategies today, if you can chalk this up to like 6-figure amounts, that's where it gets exciting. So with that context behind us, do you feel like that's appropriate? Like, would you agree with that statement? It's like focus on revenue and growth first. Then when it's like you start to hit 6-figure optimization type opportunities, then start focusing on those.
1,000,000%. It comes back to leverage. Like just a simple example, we had a brand, they had a product that we spent a lot of money to redo the classification of the box to save 20 cents in Amazon fees. Now, if that was selling 100 units a month, that's $20 in savings. That's nothing. But this brand was selling 10,000 units a month. So you can think of the implication of that. That's almost what we're talking about, $22,000 a month, basically, on that single item. That's 25 grand a year. So you can think of, again, there's not much leverage maybe for a smaller brand where that single item savings is not going to be implied. But also as you're bigger, you can have business units. We have an entire business unit marketing team, 30 people that's focused on growth. And you have other business centers that are supply chain. So you also have more resources. But as you're smaller, you have to obviously be more focused. You nailed it on the head.
Love it. Well, Jasim, you've got a lot of operational improvements that you guys have made, almost nearing $1 million, which, again, what I love about that is it falls straight to the bottom line of your business. So how did you achieve over $800,000 in operational savings for your business? And hopefully we could share some strategies that sellers can maybe go implement in their own brands today.
Of course. Yeah, I'll get started. And I kind of like the saying as we approach business. I remember Howard Schultz, they always ask him when he goes back to Starbucks, what's the one thing you did to improve the business? And he said, it's always 1,000 small things. He talks about how he changed the straw. And that's the way we approach it. It's usually never like one big thing. It was a lot of strategies that I'll kind of mention today that little by little kind of move things around. And actually an important point, you mentioned that Amazon hasn't really increased fees that much. They've actually become more creative with fees. They've added so many things. Like it's the referral fee and the pick and pack fee. They're almost the same as when they started. But what they've really raised is the low inventory level fee, removal orders you mentioned. So how are we navigating those as we approach them and looking at that aspect of things? So going back to all the way, let's just even start from where procurement happens, even purchasing inventory, basically. The first thing that we did is realizing that the price that we're getting, even if you're working with international manufacturers, especially if you're smaller and you found that manufacturer on Alibaba or you found that manufacturer, they're well known, they're good at marketing, then it's likely you're buying it through a broker. That's just one example. Looking at the cost of your product, are you actually getting the best cost for it? That's one of the analysis that we did, is we found that we're dealing with a lot of middlemen. And the middlemen are so good, you kind of they represent the brand truly, the manufacturer truly. You never realize it. And that's where you have to kind of build RFPs. You have to build a spec sheet of your product and send it to 10, 20 people, send it to 5, 10 people. You build it once, and that's where you have leverage. Is you email the same spec sheet and you get quotes back. So that's one of the first things we just started from the root causes. Let's look at procurement, and that alone drove 20 to 30% in savings on a lot of cost of goods. And not only that, but it had reciprocal effects because the tariffs are also now cheaper because they're based on the cost of the goods of the item. So just starting with the basics is looking at the cost of your product. Are you truly getting the best cost? Can you visit your factory to get the best cost? Understanding all that kind of stuff is something that we've seen, especially us, is a lot of people don't realize how much middlemen are involved, especially with Chinese manufacturers where the actual factory is not good at marketing. They're not good at English. So they're using a middleman that's sometimes upcharging 30 and 40%. And that's alone is just a low-hanging fruit to kind of we address things.
Yeah, a lot of operational improvements just from very simple strategies there. Love it.
Exactly. So then we kind of get into shipping, and this is actually one of the biggest cost centers for a lot of e-commerce brands in general. And this is where we had a lot of leverage within that. So Amazon, thankfully, now has international programs, whether it's AGL, but also using freight forwarders and using all that kind of stuff is making sure, and this is something that I'm going to come to a lot and something we implemented last year, is we're always doing RFPs. So requests for proposals, we have the requirements ready. So even when we're asking for a shipment from China, right now what we're doing is we're sending the same requirements to 3 or 4 vendors or 3 or 4 shippings. And then we're also getting AGL's code, we're comparing it to others. And then even within AGL, you can also, depending on your volume, again, you can request a certain contract rate. If you ship at least one a week, you can talk to your AGL rep. And by the way, on a side point, AGL reps are the best reps in Amazon. They're very active. They give you their WhatsApp numbers. That's kind of a side hack whenever this comes out, but we love our AGL reps. So just looking at that, seeing what you can do that, and within going back to shipping is condensing your product. Is I mentioned it a little bit briefly, is looking at the fee classification of your item. Sometimes you're half an inch away from the lower fee classification. And looking at your product, can you mold it in a certain way? Because that has downstream implications. Because if it's cheaper all the way from the start, you fit more in a container, you get a lower fee classification. If you're shipping it to AWD, you get more in a box. AWD charges per box. Just one example is like even talking about AWD, right? And sorry, I hope I'm not getting too technical, but this is a good example. As we had a certain brand that we're working with, they were fitting 4 items in a box. The box was 20 pounds, so each item was 5 pounds. And it was fine. They were fitting in a container, but they charge you $2.14 per box, not per item. So that same box, if there's 4 items in a box, that's 40 cents an item just on the AWD fee. Now imagine if, because you can go up to 50 pounds, you can actually put 10 in a box. We put 9 just to be on the safe side, 46 pounds, but now we're paying $2.14 for 9 items. So we're paying around 23 cents an item. So that's just on the AWD fee, we have it there. So imagine if it's 1,000 units, 2,000 units. So that's just the biggest thing. If I had one thing to leave your audience with, Josh, is to density. That's the key word for shipping, is cram your trucks as much as you can, cram your items as much as you can. Like we even have brands that have different packaging for retail, different packaging for Amazon. And it's fine. You can use a different picture in the listing. It doesn't matter. And the customers kind of expect that. Amazon's packaging is more durable, more dense. Retail, obviously, you have to be fancy. And then just understanding your supply chain, being dynamic with that, using different programs. Amazon programs are getting very good. They have AWD, but they also have GWD. They're opening. We're on the beta program. And I think by the time this episode comes out, it's going to be public. But it's global warehouse distribution. So it's AWD, but in China. So looking at your entire supply chain from start to finish and seeing which routes, is it using AWD or is it going to directly to an FC cheaper? And looking apples to apples, kind of comparing everything is what we spent a lot of time on last year and what we've been really focused on.
What have you seen as it relates to shipping? It seems like this is an endless rabbit hole where you can optimize almost endlessly. Give me like your overall takeaways. What have you seen to be like the most cost efficient, especially for brand owners if we're telling them, hey, actually, like, don't worry too much about these operational savings, go grow your revenue first. Where would you point people towards? And so my questions would be, let's talk about shipping. So bringing products over from China, what does that look like? What have you found? You've been sending out lots of RFPs. Is it you are always getting like a new vendor every single time? Or are you seeing like, hey, to be honest with you, AGL wins 75% of our contracts? Or is it some other freight forwarder? So that's question one. And then question two is, what's the best 3PL strategy in the US? Are you recommending people use, or because of AWD increasing their prices, now it's actually more cost effective to be at 3PLs? And obviously this is very nuanced because it depends on your business and are you shipping into retail? Are you only Amazon? Are you other sales channels? So I know there's not a one size fits all, but give me like the bigger picture. Like what did you learn through all of this that would maybe be some like high level recommendations for the listeners?
Yes. So the RFPs, if you want to kind of Pareto principle, kind of 80-20, is do it initially, see what's the best, and then do it occasionally after that, just to keep your current option honest and make sure they know that there's someone else competing. Just understanding that is a huge aspect in of itself. So that's one thing. Going even back to procurement is really beating kind of your factory down to see what the best price is. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Steve Simonson, but he was kind of talking about playing misery Olympics with your factory, kind of complaining that you're not making any money and seeing what that is. But going back to the main thing that really, I think, moved the needle for us a lot, it was really going to your highest moving items, because a lot of sellers, especially 7-8 figures, they only have 1 or 2 hero ASINs a lot of times. So looking at that and going to the fee classification and understanding where that lives, and based on the product's size, based on that, and seeing if you can move that and making it dense from start to finish was something that saved us a lot of money. And for the ideal supply chain strategy, right now, we are still using AWD frequently because of the inbound placement fees. Even though they went up, but inbound placement fees are unbelievably expensive. Shipping from internationally to ingesting into AWD is good. I would recommend keeping some safety stock in your warehouses in case it goes out of stock, because AWD is unreliable, especially in Q4. But we found that to be a fairly reliable option as long as you can fit a lot of items in a box. That's kind of the simplest way and the easiest way. And you also get the advantage of working with an AWD rep, AGL rep. If you need anything, you can kind of bounce some ideas on them. But you also, most importantly, you save on a lot of storage fees with FBA, which have been that's one of the other mistakes we see is people using FBA storage. And we made sure that our team doesn't have more than 60, 70 days of stock at FBA. And to give AWD credit, they're actually pretty good at that. So they don't overstock your FBA. And that's why I like it, because not only saves you inbound placement, but also saves you a lot of fees with Amazon. And even look at the low inventory level fee, you can also mitigate that with AWD because you have a lot of inventory there. So directly, AWD is more expensive, but it also saves you from all these random fees that Amazon introduced: inventory age surcharge fee, Q4 peak FBA fee, all that kind of stuff, which we've seen very helpful and kind of within its radius. I hope that answers the question, Tosh.
Yeah, so you're still seeing AWD kind of be worth the cost in and of itself because it has a lot of other intangible benefits. Yes. And saves you from other costs. Also
operationally, like you don't have to have someone continuously look at it, so that's possibly an employee. So intangible, as you mentioned.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on AGL then? What have you seen with their rates compared to others?
So AGL does have good rates. Their tracking ability is not as good. But yes, I would say a lot of the times, no, they're actually not winning a lot of rates. Freight forwarders are winning on AGL, not by a lot, but $1,000 on a container adds up over time. They were last year, but over the last few months, it's been not as competitive. So that's where I would say still keep an eye on that and see what freight forwarders can get you in. But again, if I was a smaller seller, I'd probably just stick with AGL and focus on higher leverage stuff. But for us, when we're moving almost a few containers a week, that's obviously a different story. We have to make sure that it's as nailed in as possible.
Yeah. No, makes a ton of sense. And then you also talked about optimizing your FBA fees and the way you're packaging the boxes, the cartons. I think that's super smart. So Jasim, where else have you been finding some operational savings for your business?
Yeah, I mean, I could kind of even, obviously we're going to mention AI, so I'll leave that a little bit for later, but I'll actually mention something maybe a little bit less kind of on the other side of things, on marketing and growth, is we've been able to basically look at a lot of our marketing campaigns. I mean, besides the basic of obviously if something isn't driving clicks or A costs, obviously removing those, but actually being very strategic with organic ranking that we target and going after a keyword and going after it truthfully and marketing for the sake of organic ranking rather than being satisfied with odd sales. Like when we're trying to market and trying to grow, we're trying to organically rank. And that's especially on like bottom of funnel, sponsored product. We're looking at the SQP, search query performance, and we're seeing, are we converting better for that keyword than the market, at least by 1 or 2%? And if we are, then what we do is we change our PDP, product detail page, we change the images. Let's say, for example, I have a mug right here, right? I mentioned this, like if I want to rank for a gym mug, we're going to put pictures of someone in a gym, and we're going to copy for someone in a gym with the Rufus, because then it also drives the conversion rate further. And then we're going to target gym mug until we organically rank, and then we kind of bring it back to normal. That's one of the things that we've been saving a lot of money on, is attacking certain keywords. And we also organically rank cheaper because we're attacking it specifically because we know that our conversion rate is higher than the market. And we're also even changing the PDP to inflate our conversion rate further. And we hopefully within a few weeks, maybe sometimes a little bit longer, 6-7 weeks for the A9 algorithm to pick it up. We rank, we stabilize, and then we go after another keyword group, as we call it. So let's say the next keyword group would be desk mug for this one or whatever.
That is fantastic. That is something I have not heard that strategy yet, where yes, the SQP performance report, you're measuring that, you're comparing that to the market average. That's good. You want to keep pushing on the, obviously where you have the higher conversion rate. But I love what you just shared is like you take it up a notch. You then adjust, you don't just say, hey, we're already winning. you're now going to pour more gasoline on this fire and say like, we're going to win even more and increase our conversion rate. So I'm targeting this workout or gym related keyword. So my second image is going to be a lifestyle image of a guy sweating at the gym with this mug or whatever it is. And so you're like, and again, the buyer psychology is like, yep, that's me. And so the conversion rate goes higher. I love that strategy. And what you're saying though, is like, you focus on this keyword, then you move to a new keyword, and then you're going to like replace that image of the guy at the gym with the office worker or something like that, and focus on those keywords. Is that kind of the process you're running?
You nailed it. You got it really quick. So yes. So basically that's where the cost savings is alignment between the SEO, creative, and marketing team, rather than each one trying to do something. And that's where wasted money comes, because the creative has to redo the images. And then, so that's kind of just having that internal alignment and making sure they report to the same person. And that's where actually smaller brands have an advantage, because a lot of times it's just you. So you have better communication alignment. You can move quicker than a lot of slower, larger people.
Yeah, I think that that's very true for those that are listening, where if it is just you and you have a 7-figure brand, like see that as an advantage, because even brands like myself, as soon as you're into the 8-figure range, you've got teams. And honestly, I told my team this earlier, which is like, we and our communication are the constraint to the business right now. We are the constraint, because what is going on in TikTok is not being properly communicated on Amazon, and what's being marketed on Meta. Like, we need to do a better job communicating. Whereas if it's just you, you can easily go use AI, go get yourself a new main image, post that main image, look at the SQP, double down your budgets on certain keywords, and go from there. So I think that use it as an advantage to just like, it's like a little speedboat, go faster around all the cruise ships that are slowly moving along. What else have you been, any other, I guess, insights or findings in the marketing aspect to save costs and efficiency there?
Yeah, let me think through. I mean, obviously, I think one of the other stuff, it depends on the category, but one of the other things that we focused on, this is actually a negative mindset that a lot of sellers we see have, is they think LTV is solely for Shopify, and LTV doesn't exist on Amazon. Yes, Amazon is more strict with the customer, but we've done a lot of things over the last year to increase our LTV, whether it's reorder rates or our AOV, average order value. So even getting into average order value, what we've done is, for example, sometimes coupons. If buy two, get 5% off. We already paid for the CPC sometimes to get a click. Let's try to sell as much as we can. The step 2 of that is look at going to multi-basket analysis in the brand registry. What are customers buying? Can we also release that product too? So we can increase the AOV, upsell, downsell, cross-sell for that certain customer. So, and then even within that, if it's business pricing, you can offer 3% on a discount for business pricing, and you show up on the ads for free. So looking at how can I increase the AOV? How can I get either more of that single unit ordered or more units across my catalog ordered? And then the second part of that is how can I increase reorder rates? And we've focused so much on subscribers last year, as we're going to pay a lot for the first guy for consumables. It is what it is. We're going to offer a subscribe and save coupon. It's going to be aggressive, 20%, 10%, whatever it is. And we're going to offer a reorder coupon. Then we have that subscriber. We make sure our product is actually good, of course, but we have that person hopefully over the long run, and testing the SNS coupon to see, like, just one example is we had a $40 product. Initially, we had 20% coupon on it, and we're getting around 100 subscribers a month. We changed it to an $8 coupon. So it's still the same amount. It's just now $8 instead of 20. And now we're getting 150 subscribers a month. So just testing that and seeing what the lever is, and keeping an eye on things is, again, if you don't have a consumable, this is not as relevant, but that's just one example of focusing on LTV and getting the most out of what you're running.
That's super smart, especially the strategy. If you don't have a consumable product, like the focus, again, the mindset for like supplement sellers and beauty is like, oh yeah, it's all about the subscribe and save. It is about the LTV and things like that. So that comes kind of naturally to them. I think it is unnatural for somebody that's selling maybe commodity type products. Maybe it is like a tumbler or a mug or something like that. And it's like, you don't need subscribe and save on this tumbler, but your strategy to say, hey, maybe we're not focused on the LTV, but we are focused on the AOV on Amazon. And so being able to have that, like the coupon is the best strategy there to say, hey, buy 2, get 5%, buy 3 and get 10%. I know myself as a consumer on Amazon, I always click those to be like, what else? Like, what else do I have to buy to save this percentage? And again, it's a really good way, like liken it unto on Shopify, you have your upsell feature, right? Where it's like somebody adds something to cart and it's like, hey, by the way, would you like this? Amazon controls that on Amazon. We know that. However, the best thing that we can do truly is that like little coupon to say, it's like you're raising your hand saying, hey, buy 2, save X percent, buy 3, save another percent. So love that strategy. Any other unique ways that you've found to like increase AOV on Amazon?
I'll get actually a little bit tactical, if you allow me. So within that same strategy of buy one, get two, what we've done is actually do unstackable coupons. And this worked really well. Again, you have to be careful because also if you have a premium brand with premium positioning, like if Nike or L'Oreal did this, it's not as suitable. If you're just trying to get sales, because a lot of coupons make the page look a little bit kind of scruffy. But it did work for one of the brands that we have where it's more commoditized, it's kind of not pre-positioned. But what we did is we put the buy one, buy two, get 5% off, etc. But then what we also did is we did a 15% off coupon. So we had both running, and customers would see on the search SERP, search engine result page, wow, 2 coupons. It blows in your face. And then they walk in, oh, this is that. They press on both, but actually at the checkout page, it only allows one. And by that point, they're already too far in. They just choose the one that's better for them. And we've seen that work for quite a few products. So unstackable coupons, making it look kind of more exorbitant and standing out, and eventually testing it out. But again, I want to be careful. Not all products are a good fit for it. If you're a very premium brand, maybe it's not the best positioning. Coupons in general, but that's something that...
Yeah, fantastic insights. Very good. Jasim, what else? Any other like operational efficiency, marketing efficiency, any other ways that you guys have been able to generate some savings?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we did additionally last year was also SIP. So SIP, ships in product packaging. And this is, again, if you don't have a giftable item or you're not afraid of it getting damaged in shipping, we've done this. It saves you a lot, actually, almost $1 or $2 in shipping fees. One thing you have to be careful with SIP is that your returns are no longer usable because they put a non-adhesive on the product itself. If actually customer returns are valuable and you sell them somewhere, then be careful. I know a lot of Amazon just kind of shoot them in the garage. Not applicable. But if they are, that's something you want to be careful about. But generally, we've seen that to be helpful. So ships in product packaging. I'm just trying to see a list of a few things that the team was kind of. This is actually a big one. Is reimbursements and recovery, and this is something that we see a lot of people miss out on. And just to give you an idea, we sold, I think it was around $90 million last year, and we got around 2 to 3% of that back in reimbursements and recovery. Not only on the Seller Central marketplace, but also even on Walmart. It exists too. So you have to benchmark is what are you currently getting for reimbursements and recovery? We have a very thorough process, 30 full-time employees. We have a SaaS that comes in after them. We have to make sure that whatever is lost inbound, damaged customers are returning after 30 days. There's so much within that. Is go take a look now. How are you sure that all your products are arriving to app? Because they lose so much, especially in the US marketplace. They're more accurate in Canada and UK. We sell their tour, but maybe due to the velocity here, are you recovering all the money Amazon owes you? At the very least, if you kind of want to keep it high level, go to a SaaS provider, negotiate them down. You can get them on commission even down to 70%. Don't say they're going to hang a lot of them, but you can negotiate them very heavily. And you can have it run them at the very least in the background. And hopefully once you start to understand, you can build that in-house. We have to do it for our brands. But reimbursements and recovery, even if you're doing $1 million a year, let's say $2 million a year, 2 to 3%, let's just say $2 million, that's what, 50 grand almost. That's huge. That's a full-time employee. So that's something to make. Now some of it is automated, but you still have to make sure your sourcing cost is accurate. You have to fight Amazon on that. That's one thing. Another thing is they don't give everything automatically. You still have to fight for some stuff. So just keep an eye on all that.
Love that. That's a great insight on that. Now, Jasim, all of these things are good operational like savings and good ideas. But when you're scaling a big team, especially when you have 150 people like yourself, it's hard to like track all of that. And so it really comes into like your KPIs and your data reports to be able to track these things, see, are we getting better? Are we getting worse over time? Because like, this is death by 1,000 cuts. It's like, if you're sleeping on this stuff, we listed off easily probably like 10 to 20 different fees at this point, that if you sleep on them, you could be losing close to over $1 million in costs easily. So what are the KPIs that you're tracking for your team so that they are looking at the leading measures of the business and making sure that everything is as efficient as possible? And where do you find these metrics in Amazon?
No, that's a great question. So the metrics that right now, there's a leadership level metrics and then there's departmental metrics. So each supply chain has its own, compliance has its own catalog. On a company level, it's kind of the aggregate. Gross revenue, contribution margin dollars, in-stock rate, the biggest ones. Let me think about a few of the other ones we have on there. I mean, one of them is ClickUp task completion percentage is another example that we have on there. So that's, and other marketplace revenue is a big one too, because we're trying to diversify Amazon. What does Walmart look like? What does TikTok Shop look like? Amazon Canada, Amazon UK. And then based on those KPIs, then we go, let's say, to supply chain. They're looking at things more specifically. What does it cost per pound to ship stuff? What's our in-stock rate? So again, you kind of come to the biggest, looking at the top for your company. The biggest thing for all of us is net margin dollars. So looking at what your revenue is, what is the biggest thing to scale that? It's probably not going to be, like I said, optimizing for a specific SEO bullet point. It's going to be maybe launching a new product in a very uptrending market. So understanding, looking at your current situation, looking at your certain KPIs, and looking at your P&L, like for example, that's where our supply chain costs. We noticed on our P&L, supply chain was 15% of expenses. Like, doesn't need to be this way. And now it's around 12% of our total expenses. So looking at the biggest cost items, or either on the negative, what's drawing the most, or in the positive, what could bring me the most, and attacking that one and prioritizing it would be the way I would approach it.
Yeah, very smart. Who's looking at those metrics every day? Is it your team members, department heads? Is it yourself? And how do you manage that through your team?
Yes, so I'm looking obviously on the leadership we have, and it doesn't have to be too complicated. We're using Google Sheets. We have someone putting in the numbers in there, even that. But I am looking at them frequently, daily. We use a book called Traction. It helped a lot of the concepts that we have, but they call them KPIs basically, and we list them off. We put the main KPIs there. But important thing actually, now that I'm talking about metrics, if I can cite this guy right. All right, yeah. But one thing that Andrew Grove talks about often is actually about counter metrics, and this is a very important concept, especially for people building out KPIs. Is you want to pair the metrics. So you don't want to just measure revenue and forget about profit, because all your team is going to do is spend all your marketing money and you have a big revenue number. And vice versa, you don't want to just look at profit, because they're just not going to spend in marketing. They're not going to test out things. So same thing for like in-stock rate, or in-stock rate is 100%, but you have 10 months of stock. Okay, that's horrible. You want to measure in-stock rate and months on hand. So you want to make sure that you want to look at the opposite of that metric and make sure you're measuring both and optimizing for both simultaneously, because otherwise you could run into serious trouble. And that's one of the mistakes we made. So I hope people kind of set it up right from the start.
Yes, excellent insight on that. What's the name of that book again?
It's High Output Management.
Output Management.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, that is excellent insight, because we've seen the same thing where it's like you try to optimize towards this metric, 100% in stock. Yeah. And I think I almost feel like every entrepreneur has to go through this until they learn the hard way, because then it's like we got like a year's worth of inventory now.
Yeah.
It lasts us 2 years now. Thank you. And again, fortunately, that's not all products, but it was like on certain ones. And so then you correct the process. But I think it's really important that we focus on this real quick. This is exactly why Thrasio went bankrupt.
Yep.
Because they did not have the operational efficiencies and the operational insights that they needed to be able to run all of these brands. That is ultimately what killed them, is that, they gave their supply chain managers direction like, hey, number one rule on Amazon, never go out of stock. Okay, great. COVID bumps up, so they just go crazy ordering. We're never going out of stock. Well, great. Now you got 10 years worth of inventory, right? And so that ultimately is what became their downfall, is just like operational laziness is what killed them in the end. And so, yes, it is important to focus on growth, but you've got to do so while focusing. Like, you can't be stupid at the same time with your general operation. So it's like, be good enough to stay in the game and be profitable. But for entrepreneurs, your biggest asset that you bring is sales and revenue, period. So bring the sales, bring the revenue. And then guess what? Most of entrepreneurs are visionaries. They're good at going out into the future and grabbing that and seeing what that looks like and bringing that new product to life. Great. You're building sales. The good news is there are a lot more people in the world that are not entrepreneurs, but are very meticulous and detail oriented and want to focus on the risk adverse. And so they're going to be like, hold on, before we ship this container, I want to make sure all these I's are dotted and these T's are crossed. And you need those team members, because the entrepreneur is like, yeah, that's good enough. Thanks. Let's go. Let's ship it. I just need this product here tomorrow. And so I think that is the mindset that people need to experience. That shift is entrepreneurs go and grow and scale and bring the revenue, but then you hire experts that come in here, maybe tell you to hold on. Okay, yes, we will ship this. However, I've got to go through my 20-point checklist first to make sure this is the best possible option before we move forward on this. So I think the most important thing we could do to wrap this all up is one of the biggest costs for most businesses is overhead, right? You have 150 team members. That's no small, payroll check that you're having to cut. With the advancements of AI, there's a lot of noise in the market right now. There's a lot of people that feel like, oh, they're sorely behind. Everybody is now just running these e-commerce brands with just a bunch of bots that are executing everything on their behalf, or so it seems. I call BS to a lot of that right now. I don't think anybody has that $100 million brand with one guy and a bunch of bots happening. Maybe it happens a few years from now, but I don't see that happening today. So, Jasim, what is your take on the current market of AI? How are you using it? Because I do think there's wise uses of AI, but they need to be in specific like workflows and use cases. So, tell me how you're using it.
No, I think you had a great overview of that, Josh, and kind of even taking a step back. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I attended one of your talks, Brandon Young show. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, and he talked about hiring high-level people and about labor efficiency and how to hire them overseas. And he kind of broke a limiting belief on the level of thoroughness, the high-level people you can get. So that was a very beneficial talk since we're kind of mentioning labor. So I just wanted to thank you for it and kind of jump into the section.
Well, hey, glad you found value in that.
Yes.
That has aged well. It's still the playbook that we use ourselves. So what Jasim is referring to, it's my 7-step playbook for how we hire like management level staff. And I don't care where the staff comes from. It could be in the US, could be Canada, could be in Europe, it could be in Asia. I don't care where the staff comes from. What I care about is, can they do the job? And obviously, if they're overseas, all the much more of an advantage there is. There's smart people everywhere in the world. So if you're a remote first organization, which most e-commerce brands are, your biggest advantage is like finding really, really smart people throughout the entire world. And you don't have to just hire from a 20-mile radius around your office building.
No, that was a great talk. So yeah, kind of leading into AI and introduction is, as you mentioned, that's what we've seen it being introduced throughout employee workflows to increase capacity and throughput. The most obvious example for us is the creative department. We had our creative team. They were able to, let's say, produce 1 listing improvement per day, where the main image and the image stack and that kind of stuff. Now they're doing 4 to 5 a day. Within that we're able to A/B test through managed experiments on Seller Central to see what's most aligned. So that directly impacts top line because we're getting more variants out there, we're getting more tests to have, and we're testing it accordingly, obviously. And that's been one of the biggest lifts, is introducing AI into various workflows. Another one is, for example, SEO. Again, AI is only as good as you feed it. We love to use Notebook LM. It takes in sources. So for example, I'll just type into SEO. We put in the existing reviews, the existing competitors on the back end as a source, and then we're going to say reference ACE and XYZ. They have it as a source. They have the reviews, the customer reviews, the product reviews. They also have the competitors all within that file. And then we also have, so in addition to the sources, we have a desired output. So we say we know that our best performing SEO is from this listing because this drove improvement today. Produce me something like XYZ based on these sources for this product. So again, you have to, that's what makes AI very powerful for us, is including that source material and also including kind of inspiration that you'd like to see. And that's where we've seen that continuously. That's why we love Ecomm and Gemini, because you can kind of reference the sources very quickly, and also comes with workspace to a very good extent. So we've seen a lot of that, where the SEO team is producing consistently the top tier quality because we're consistently modeling the best. We're also consistently referencing top tier data with that on the back end. Even for product development, now that we put the market in here, okay, this is what we see. It's going to challenge us. What we see in the market based on the sources that you gave us is XYZ. So that's the biggest tip, if I have, for AI, is making sure you feed it the appropriate source material and the context, which is the keyword, and also show it what you'd like to see. So yes, so introducing it to various workflows. Nano Bananas, like compared to, that was, I think, one of the revolutionary breakthroughs with AI compared to older solutions. I'm not sure if you remember Midjourney or some of the other ones. Big difference with Nano Banana, where you can kind of edit the source material, you can look into it, and it is producing stuff very good. You have to be careful, make sure it's consistent with brand quality. Again, kind of go back to source material. You have the brand quality in there, you have all that stuff in there, and you have the desired output within that. So and that's one of the biggest things, is we look at each employee and we look at the work that they take. Before, the SEO person, they have to go to Helium 10, do keyword research. Yes, we still do that every quarter now to add the new keywords, but we still have the existing keywords in the source material. So they removed that step. So that now their capacity, their KPI should have been improved, because that's one less thing that they have to do. What else are the steps that they're doing? The tests they're doing. That's what we did, is kind of, what's the task that you're doing? Which ones can AI or automation take over so your throughput can increase? And we can test out more material. We can make our customers happier to produce more outcomes. Where can AI jump in? Even for example, our accounting, it can now feed into automatically the accounting data, produce the output, and there's still stuff it can't do, like quality control. But I hope that the message kind of comes across, looking at the specific task an employee does and analyzing which ones AI or automation can take over.
Yeah, I love that sentiment. And I think the most important thing is you're not getting distracted with AI. You're utilizing AI for specific use cases. And I think that's where the confusion comes from. A lot of people are seeing like really sexy dashboards that people are putting out. And it's like, I've merged this data set into this data set and into this. And now I've got my scorecard that I look
my
at.
My 50th scorecard, yeah.
it's like, what are you going to do with that thing? And how long did it take you to build that? And it's like, oh, I just spent the weekend doing it. So are you telling me like that took you 20 hours to build over the weekend? And guess what? Like naturally that thing's going to break. One of the connections is going to fail. Then you're going to have to debug it. Now you're maintaining it. And you're like, but I saved $100. I no longer need seller board anymore. And you're like, wow, well, you spent $20 and that for $99 a month, you're effective like you're less than $5
probably use those in AI
an hour.
credits with the revisions.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, interesting fact on that, right? Is like there was a conversation where we may get to a tipping point where it's actually cheaper to have the humans or a VA execute a process because you're burning so many freaking tokens just to get a very simple routine process done. So it's an interesting inflection point. I think that's where like there's a lot of noise. It is the future, but like use it to grow revenue. And you gave us some very good use cases for that. Jasim, is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you feel like you need to share with the audience?
No, I think we're very thorough, and I hope, you asked a lot of great questions. Again, very glad to be here, and I do agree with your sentiment about AIs. Again, don't look at your constraints. Look what's needed for you. There's kind of 4 levers for growth on Amazon. It's just impressions, click-through rate, conversion rate, and LTV. Which one can you lift the most? Focus on that one. If it's click-through rates, main image and title, and just attack it and focus on that. As you mentioned, that's one thing that I love about your kind of talks, is really looking at the capacity constraint and addressing that one to make sure you actually see the changes that you're going to see. And if AI can help you do that capacity change, then use it, sure.
Fantastic. Well, just as we wrap things up, I'd love to leave the audience with 3 actionable takeaways from every episode. Here are the 3 actionable takeaways that I noted. You let me know if I'm missing something. Action item number 1, if you cannot find an efficiency or cost savings greater than 6 figures for any initiative in your business, I would say the better option is to focus on growing revenue. So the example is this: if you don't think you could save $100,000 by optimizing your supply chain from FBA fees to AGL to inbounding fees and things like that, then it is going to be a better use of your time to go focus on developing that next new product or getting onto that next new sales channel. So action item number 1 is determine where you need to put your focus, because you have unlimited opportunities and ways to grow your business, but you only have finite resources. And so the focus and your time is the most expensive resource. So dedicate it and allocate it really smartly. Like you are an allocator of resources. Just like Warren Buffett chooses where he wants to place his money, you should be determining where you place your time and efforts. Action item number 2 is, let's assume that we do have 6 figures worth of savings. I would start first and foremost with your unit economics coming from your manufacturer, and then diving into the rabbit hole world of supply chain and optimization of FBA fees.
And also, if I can add, starting with your highest velocity items too, because those are going to leverage. If you're having items on one a month, do not try to negotiate your factory that one. The higher leverage you can also negotiate because there's more scale, and so it's kind of on both ends. So yes, it's a great point.
Well, especially when you're managing 30,000 products and if you're listening to this and you're saying, now I need to go optimize unit cost for 30,000 units. No, just use the Pareto principle. In fact, get even a little tighter. It's probably the 1% of products that are doing the volume that you want to go focus on, and that will bring the biggest incremental savings to you. So really good call out on that point. Third and final action item is to see Amazon as a place where there is a customer lifetime value and AOV. A lot of people are sleeping on that, and they're just looking at Amazon on front end acquisition only. And there are strategies, you shared those with us, I think there's even images that you could incorporate that demonstrate other products that go along with your products in some of the secondary images. There's coupons that you could stack on there to let people know there's more to this than what meets the eye. And obviously there's some good subscribe and save strategies, coupon savings that you can implement there. And when you do that, that's where the business becomes a lot more efficient. You save more money, you become more profitable because you're generating more sales. Jasim, anything else you feel like I missed there?
No, those are great action items and a great start to this. And hopefully you'll see it reflected on the growth.
Fantastic. Well, my final 3 questions for you. Number 1, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
The most influential book, I would say, the book that I quoted, obviously it's very technical. I have a lot of other great books. I think there's one of them, I forgot his name, is Matt Mukari, on being a CEO. And he actually talks about a focus, and that's another book that I'd recommend. Obviously from a personal aspect, it would have to be obviously religious scripture, one that I'm reading, but then, of course, from a business aspect, those 2 books have been very, very practical and beneficial.
Wonderful recommendations. What's your favorite AI tool that you've been using, and how have you been using it?
I would say Replit, actually. We have been building very simple apps to track shipments, stuff that wasn't on the market. Again, if there was a $30 or $40 SaaS available out there, we'd take it in, but they lacked some key features. So we built a very simple stuff, for example, tracking shipments from China to over here. We have, again, a lot of containers from even Vietnam. So just having that dashboard for ourselves and for partners has been really cool for our team.
Wonderful. That is a great use case of AI. Final question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-com space that other people should be following, and why?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm not saying this because I'm with you. I think you're a great follower yourself. I do like to, let me try to think about this. Let's see. There's a lot of great speakers, honestly. I think that some of them maybe aren't as vocal. But I would say, honestly, now that I think about it, I mean, he's very old school, but Steve Simonson is also someone that I've learned a lot from. So that's kind of some names that pop up. I'm sure there's a lot more. I apologize to anyone that's been helping me that I kind of forgot about. But just off the top, I would say those are some good names. And obviously with even one of the other stuff that you talked about, even plastic and Emilio and using that for payment terms, that's stuff that we're looking at ourselves, and we're still benefiting from a lot of those tactical stuff that you've been mentioning.
Love to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, and Steve is another great recommendation. Another person who, if you want to dive deep into the rabbit hole of supply chain and sourcing, he's a great resource for that. So excellent. Well, Jasim, if people want to reach out to you, learn more about you, maybe even work with you, what's the best place for people to do so?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, if you're a brand doing obviously over $1 million a year, come check us out at Videra.com. We can talk, maybe do an audit, see if there's a good fit there. Otherwise, I'm also posting on LinkedIn. So Jasim Eisa, just as my name, you can see it there. Or on YouTube, I'm trying to post once a week with more of this kind of stuff. So make sure to subscribe and follow me there, and I'll continue hopefully providing valuable insights within this e-commerce industry.
Well, this has been a great episode. Thanks again for your time today and joining us on the show.
Thank you very much, Josh. It's been an honor to be here.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecommbreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.